Testing, hello. Louder. Hi, everyone. So we're just going to get started because we have some limited time trying to get you all to dinner. But we are all student fellows here at the Institute for Faith and Freedom, and we're really excited to have the opportunity to share with you a student perspective on this really important issue and kind of build upon a lot of the stuff that you've been hearing all day. We know that you've heard from a lot of really great speakers today, a lot of really important and good information. So it's our hope to just build on that and give you some further perspective. This is an issue that's really near and dear to our hearts. We just came back from an Israel seminar in DC with Concerned Women for America 2 weeks ago, which was a really great experience for all of us. I've been to Israel, so that's really changed my perspective on the issue. And we also hosted a prayer vigil here on campus following the October 7th attacks. So we're really excited to share that with you. But just to start, we'll introduce ourselves. Lauren, if you want to go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren. I'm a junior. I'm a marketing fellow at the Institute for Faith and Freedom, and I'm a double political science and communications major. As a marketing fellow, I run events, I write articles, and I just work with the other fellows on spreading our values of faith and freedom across this campus and community. One of the things that I really value about being part of IFF is just the ability as a Christian to integrate both my conservative views and my Christian worldview together. I love my country and I love my God, so doing both of those things is a really awesome experience for me.
I'm Katie Kenlein. I'm from Spokane, Washington, across the country. Grace and I will tell you we're both from some very blue states. But I am a junior communications major. I get to also study political science and Spanish, which is very fun here at school. And Grace and I do the podcast for Institute for Faith and Freedom, Liberty Mail. We're recording out here today, but you can find us on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's a very fun time, and I'm very grateful. One of the reasons that made me choose this school, coming from across the country, was when I found out that Grove City College had Institute for Faith and Freedom, and I really looked forward to this. As soon as I got here, I was really looking forward to being able to be a fellow this year. It's been really great.
Yeah, and just quickly, I'm Grace Reilly. I'm a senior studying communications, and the Institute for Faith and Freedom has been incredibly impactful in my life, and just coming to Grove City College in general, I'm so grateful to be at a school that does value things like faith and freedom, because that's becoming increasingly rare, as I'm sure you're all aware, especially hearing about a lot of the things that have gone on other college campuses, even just following the October 7th attacks on this issue, but also on a variety of political issues. So as part of the Institute, I'm also involved in the podcast, some other media things, but overall, it's just been a really wonderful experience, and IFF does very valuable work, and it's really wonderful that you were all able to come to the conference this year.
Yeah, and one of the things that Grace also has had experience working with American Spectator, which our beloved professor, Dr. Paul Kengor, also writes for. And so she has been writing articles, making videos for social media since the beginning, kind of reaching younger generation a lot on social media. But she's going to just give some background of what she's seen and what she's written on, trying to reach students and young people, what she's really researched about antisemitism and the events after October 7th.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. And just to kind of preface this, we know that you've heard a lot today about what's happened on college campuses and the state of the situation and why we're here in the first place. So I'll briefly go through it. But after October 7th, so pretty much immediately after, the ADL reported a 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents. Now, this involved harassment, assault, vandalism. So really serious and a very real issue. And following that, obviously, again, you've heard about some of the things that have happened on college campuses. I think back to the hearing where there was a Cornell student, her name was Amanda Silverstein, and she shared her experience as a Jewish student and was basically shouted down by protesters for explaining what she had experienced. So there's just been a lot of stuff like that. You've heard about the Harvard professor and how that was handled. So looking at the state of things, I think the most striking thing was that a lot of protests happened on college campuses immediately after the attack on October 7th. It wasn't like they took some time and waited, in a sense, for Israel to react, but right after this happened, there were college students protesting a famous, or excuse me, not famous, but a more viral thing that happened, just as an example, was a graphic that was shared by a pro-Palestine group. It was a pro-Hamas graphic of paragliders saying "Free Palestine." Now, the context of this is obviously following paragliders, Hamas terrorists paragliding into Israel to kill innocent civilians. So there has been that pro-Hamas sentiment. So that's why we're here today, obviously, and a lot of what we want to talk about. But Grove City has been a stark contrast to other schools across the country, and one of the ways is not only this conference, but the prayer vigil that was held. Now, Katie and Lauren both worked on this, but Katie especially, as the president of our Young Women for America Club, led this prayer vigil, and it would be wonderful if you could share a bit about what that looked like in November following that attack.
Yeah, so we have been able to have a partnership between Young Women for America and Institute for Faith and Freedom, where we've done some events together. But right after the attack in October, we had a chapter meeting where we were quick to be able to pull together some information and inform Young Women for America's just girls on campus, many of them involved in IFF. That's the overlap there. But then we were basically, Concerned Women for America reached out to us, said, would you be willing to organize with whatever groups you have on campus, whatever resources you have available, be able to pull together. We want to support you in having a prayer vigil on your campus, because we'd like to show that there's not protests on every campus that are pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas. And I think even we saw today, there were no protesters standing outside the vice president. We had no protesters at this event, but basically we were able to pull together. We had faculty, community members, people from various churches, and students, and we were able to have a time of prayer in the chapel. We got to have a time of worship as well, and it was really special to be able to pray, because we do believe that prayer has power just as much as any political action that we could have taken. But it was a very special thing to be able to do on this campus, that I have many friends who are leaders in different college campuses, and they had either protesters, they couldn't get a room in order to do their prayer vigil, so they're outside, and then they had pro-Palestine protesters standing while they peacefully prayed, many of them with members of Jewish clubs on their campuses. We don't have a large Jewish population in Grove City, but while they were trying to hold a prayer vigil, people protesting them. And I'm very grateful that we didn't have that here. But one of the very special things that we prayed for, and Lauren's going to talk about this more, but we prayed for the hostages. During this, our vigil was in support of Israel, but we prayed for the terrorists, we prayed for the hostages, we prayed for all the government leaders, and really we were just putting it all in God's hands. And so Lauren's going to share the story of a little girl that we prayed for, and there were prayer vigils held all around the country, and just it's really amazing how God moved in that.
Yes, as Katie noted, the prayer vigil was really awesome opportunity for us, because as college students, obviously we can't go physically fight a war against anti-Semitism, and we don't have a lot of money. So what can we do to fight it? And a big thing that we can take part in is prayer. And so during our prayer vigil, as she said, we prayed specifically for a little girl named Abigail, and her story is heartbreaking, but she does serve as a reminder that there is hope and that prayer is very powerful and effective. So at just 3 years old, Abigail was born into an American-Israeli family within the Gaza Strip. She lived with both of her parents and 2 older siblings that weren't even 10. So on October 7th, a Hamas terrorist entered her home, and her siblings watched as their mother was brutally killed. The family went outside, and they then watched as their father also was shot by Hamas terrorists while Abigail was still in his arms. His body fell on top of her, and her older sisters, presumed that she must be dead as well. So they ran back into their home, a safe room in their house, where they stayed for 12 hours until they waited for Israeli forces to save them. While her sisters were hiding, Abigail actually had not passed away. She somehow maneuvered herself from underneath her father's body and ran to a neighbor's nearby kibbutz, nearby home, where she hid with her neighbor's family. And the father of that family went out to protect what was left of the kibbutz. And when he returned, Abigail, along with the neighbors, were gone. For several long weeks, Abigail was not found, and drawn conclusions assume that she was most likely taken as a hostage by Hamas terrorists. So after being contacted by a member of Abigail's family, concerned women took it upon themselves to tell her story, praying and believing that Abigail was still alive somewhere within the Gaza Strip. So it was during this time that we held our prayer vigil for Abigail, praying for her safety, that God would reveal where she was and bring her home to her family. So in late November, after more than 50 days of Hamas captivity, Abigail was found alive. She was separated from her siblings for over 2 months, but by the grace of God and the power of prayer, she was welcomed home to her 2 older siblings and her extended family. So despite the horrific and unprovoked deaths of her parents, Abigail's story is one of hope, because hundreds of people prayed for her life, her safety, and her preservation, and remind us that Abigail's homecoming is a story that shows us prayer is so powerful and effective. And while the sad truth is that Abigail's story is one of many, and the reality of the unthinkable horror and inconceivable pain being experienced by those in the Gaza Strip, throughout Israel, and even by our Jewish brothers and sisters across the world. As a conservative Christian, I do understand the deep value and importance in asking God to intervene. And now more than ever, we must do this. Like I said, we can't go fight this war physically, but we can pray unceasingly for the Jewish people, the Israeli and the Palestinian victims, and the thousands upon thousands of people being torn apart by these acts of brutality. So we were so honored to be able to tell Abigail's story at the vigil and even now. And it's a really beautiful thing that prayer is something that we all get to participate in, and it is powerful. So Katie, I don't know if you had anything else to add about our vigil and anything else that had to go with that?
It was really special. It was very special to have professors here. I don't want to necessarily, hopefully she doesn't get mad at me for this, but Dr. Aileen Ruan was a faculty here, and she came and prayed and joined us. It was really special. I grew up in public school in Washington State, where I never thought I would have teachers and faculty who were able to join me in prayer and to really just say, absolutely, I want to be a part of this, and to have our school support it was really special. But last 2 weeks ago, when we were in DC, it was another really special moment where the aunt of this little girl, Abigail, was at this seminar we attended. It was 30 other girls, the aunt of this girl we'd prayed for, and basically we got to meet her and we got to tell her that we had been praying for her little niece, and it was just a moment. There were a lot of tears. I got to pray for her, and it was just very special, and it's been very special to know that we were a part of this and we were able to host this on our campus. But one of the other things that's really wonderful is all the people who on our campus who had been in Israel, who maybe they came to our prayer vigil because they had walked in Israel and knew, because many students studied abroad. And I think there was this feeling on campus of, I know my friend was there, in May. I was in Israel right before this happened. And Grace she was there this last summer. And so I know that she will speak a little bit on just her experience being in Israel and how special and unique that is, that many students on this campus have been there, which is really special.
Yeah, it definitely is really special that Grove City gives a lot of students the opportunity to go on trips there. Mine wasn't with Grove City, but just the experience of actually going to Israel taught me so much that I didn't know, in a sense, where it really changed my perspective on this conflict in general and allowed me to dive into it in a much deeper way that helped me to understand things. I will say, just because I think it's really interesting, and I'm sure that many of you in this audience are familiar and know what I'm about to say, but one of the biggest takeaways for me was getting to visit was getting to visit a kibbutz called Misgav Am, and this is in northern Israel, right on the border of Lebanon. So I didn't go down near Gaza, but this was on the border of Lebanon, where we were able to look across the border into civilian homes that were military bases for Hezbollah. So we were looking at what it actually looked like for Hezbollah terrorists to be using civilian houses as bases, and what it actually meant for civilians to be used as shields. And that was something where you kind of hear about that on the news. You hear that point that, Hamas is using these places where civilians are to use them as shields, and I actually got to see that, and it's something that's true, and seeing that really opened my eyes and helped me to understand how that kind of works over there, and was really interesting. And also getting a direct briefing on the terror tunnels that are built there. So Hezbollah and Hamas both use the funds that they're given, and they build tunnels into Israel. So these tunnels that we were briefed on up in the north, they go about 250 feet into the ground. And from there, basically, terrorists use those, just as they were used on October 7th, to go down into the tunnels, go into Israel, and kill as many people as they can. That's what happened on October 7th. And just as a reality kind of how things go, even though they entered more through the border, not as much through tunnels, but that is a really important point, that those are there, that Israel kind of has discovered periodically. And then obviously the tunnels are used too to take Israeli citizens hostage so that they can trade them back for terrorists. And this is something I reported on for the American Spectator. So if you go to the American Spectator, you can read more about this story. But stuff like that was just really interesting to learn, and really changed my perspective more. Go ahead.
Yeah, something that I'll also add to that, for young students, we don't necessarily have the chance to visit Israel, but something that we did have the chance to do last weekend during our Israel seminar was we had the chance to go to the Holocaust Museum, and I think Deborah noted as she was speaking before that a greater understanding of Judaism also oftentimes leads to greater support for anti-Semitism. And so we heard from a speaker who, she actually did her doctoral dissertation on the importance of exposing students and young people to acts of brutality against Jewish people so that they could harbor a greater sense of empathy and urgency towards this issue. And so I will say, just going to the Holocaust Museum, reading books, they're a really valuable experience for me as a student who I'm not necessarily getting exposed to these acts of anti-Semitism. We're not really taught about it in schools. And so if you do have young people or students in your life, encouraging them to read books on these topics, go on a trip, or just visit a museum, I think it really added, at least for me visiting the Holocaust Museum, it really deepened my sense of empathy and really elevated the sense of urgency in the issue. For Israel is physically far away, but this issue, as you've heard about all today, is happening in our backyard. So that was really valuable as a student. And I think, too, it leads to just the value of having an institution like Grove City College and IFF that allows us to talk about these issues and other conservative issues. Katie, I don't know if you have anything else to add on the value of being able to go to a school like Grove City, and we're grateful for that.
Yeah, well, I know we want to get to if any of you have questions in a second, but we do want to say that being a part of this institute, like I said, this was something I saw the second I got on the Grove City website my senior year of high school and didn't know where I was going to college. This place is really important for us. It's really been formative, I know, for many of us as Grace goes out.
Yeah, same. I saw that there was the Institute for Faith and Freedom, and that influenced my choice also. I knew I wanted to be a fellow right when I got here and was a freshman, and it really has been so, it's exceeded my expectations. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, so we're so grateful for all of you who support the Institute and are here today, and we're grateful that we can spend time with you on campus. There are a bunch of wonderful fellows that you've probably seen today and would also love to talk to you, but we're very grateful just that we got to share a little bit of how really we've been equipped and taught by the Institute and this college, but we would love to hear any questions that any of you have, and it can be really about anything. We have a little time before dinner, I believe. Yeah, in the back, you can start. Oh, we're getting mics. Okay.
wanted to thank you, Grace, Lauren, and Kate. You are the perfect wrap to what we've heard today, because we've heard the problem discussed, and I think we're aware of the problem, but we know truly that it is a spiritual issue. So you ladies have you've really nailed it. And we want to thank Grove City for helping to make that possible. And, you know, I hear you kind of like downplaying, well, all we can do is pray. Well, guess what? That's the big one. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. That's encouraging to hear.
For those of you who said you came to Grove City largely because of IFF, I'm wondering how you found out about it, because my impression is that it is a secret that is kept far too well and needs to be given much more prominence in all Grove City College publications.
Yeah, I completely agree. I can start, and I'm sure Katie has a similar story. I'm from Connecticut, so as she mentioned earlier, very blue state. I had never heard of Grove City. I didn't have my entire family go here, like many of the students, so I'd never heard of it. But actually, funny enough, my family and I was looking for a conservative Christian school because I wanted a school that would actually help to sharpen my knowledge and build my foundation, rather than a school where I would have to constantly be butting heads. And there's a place for that, right? Like being, you know, immersed in a place where people disagree with you, to kind of go against that. But I wanted a place that would help me grow my faith and just in general, and it's really been that. We found out about it actually because we saw Dr. Kengor on Levin. So and also on we were looking at Christian conservative college lists. So we saw it on that. I completely agree. IFF should be out there more, but.
I was really influenced by an alumni, multiple alumni, an alum who reached out to me. Just happened to, you never know the power of even a Facebook message. She commented on a Facebook post. I hardly knew this woman, but she said, "Have you looked at my alma mater at Grove City College?" And it just so happened, you know, we do a lot of search Christian conservative schools, or I search Grove City College, conservative, you know, you try to figure out things like that. I was grateful that Institute for Faith and Freedom popped up, but I do think word of mouth and sharing, being able to share things on social media really is important, and that, yes, more young people do need to hear about it. And no, I do think when we get we've been very blessed to have wonderful speakers on campus, and there are more students that know about it because we're able to do really cool events that bring in a large group. I mean, today we had almost 600 students, I think, in Crawford, and we filled up. I know many kids who wanted to come who couldn't, but it's really special to have that presence on campus, and I think we're able to reach more students, which is really cool.
I'm wondering how oddball you might feel in the real world when you get out, things of that sort, because of your training here, which is not usual. So I guess my question to you is, IFF specifically, how are they helping prepare you to do the things afterwards, and what kind of tools are they providing you with, or services are they providing you with to place you in important leadership roles after you're out of here?
That's a good question. Something that I will say is, as a political science major, I'm not naive to the fact that this is a Grove City safe bubble. That's very enjoyable. And I think that was one of the huge reasons that I wanted to be a part of IFF, obviously in Grove City, is I know that when I step out of here, I will face a lot of differing opinions, a lot of maybe a little bit harsh opinions, a lot of different things. And so for these 4 formative years, I really wanted to be surrounded by like-mindedness and someone that was going to create a place that's going to create a good foundation for me. So IFF has given us a lot of different leadership opportunities. I mean, leading an event with people under you that's a great real world practice. I think in terms of reaching differing opinions, that is something that maybe we do lack a little bit here, but it's not something that I think is bad, because it's great to have this community that we're not going to necessarily have the opportunity to have ever again. But I don't know if you have more.
I think the other thing that I've really loved is the ability that IFF connects professors and students, adults, speakers that we bring in with students. And really, I mean, I'm incredibly thrilled about having Vice President Pence, because it's more of this connection of good role models for young people like me to see these people. You know, I can talk to professors. I have relationships with professors who are able to say, you know, you're not crazy. You can get out there and you can stand. I mean, even the fact, let's talk Dr. Kengor being able to publish all kinds of things, and there are people who are going to disagree with him, but he's showing all of us, you're going to be okay. You can get out of here and you can go out into the real world and you can say things that people are going to disagree with you about, but that we have some very good role models and people we can learn from. We can go ask them questions whenever. It's been really special to have adults and leaders that we bring in that we get to talk to. That's been really special for me.
I think we could probably fit one more really quick question if anyone has something else.
I'm just encouraged to know they still call it the bubble.
Agreed.
We love our bubble.
As a communications major here from 1,000 years ago, when that was a brand new major, I'm heartened to hear that a couple of you are communications majors. We were hearing earlier today that people in journalism or studying journalism today are kind of confusing journalism with activism. And I see it in my own newsroom, where young people that work with me think, oh, this is the prevailing view, isn't everybody for this? And it is reflected in their stories sometimes, rather than them understanding there's more than one point of view on this issue and your story needs to have that. So do you feel that you're being prepared in your communications and your political science studies here to go into maybe a field like journalism and not be an activist?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I haven't taken the journalism class here, so I can't directly answer to that. But I can say that there are a lot of students, even amongst the student fellows. We have Checkpoint, which is our website. So in IFF, there are fellows sitting in the back here that work on it, and they do a great job of that, where they do prioritize like having nuanced reporting in that way. And I think for me especially, this has helped me to have the foundation that I need to, in a sense, understand other perspectives better. I think that that's very important. But I do completely agree with you that in general, now it's very difficult to find that kind of reporting that's more objective. And yeah, but I feel very prepared, where even some of the work I've done hasn't even necessarily been that, just because by nature I haven't done that kind of journalism. But I feel very prepared to, in the sense of my foundation has been sharpened here, and I can address issues a lot more widely and in a more complex way. I don't know if you have any more thoughts.
I will say something briefly to that. I did recently take the journalism class, and it was nice because we got to do a opinion article, and then we had to do a non-opinion, no opinion article, very much peer reviewed. And if there was anything that felt sort of one way or another, we were to point it out to each other and try to remove that. So that was kind of a cool exercise of, you can have your opinion sometimes when it's fitting, and then if there isn't meant to be an opinion, let's have some objective reporting. So that was a good question, because that's happening often. So. Well, I just want to say in closing, we really appreciated the opportunity to share our perspectives with you. We love the Institute. We also appreciate your support. So thank you all so much for coming today. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed just hearing a little bit from us, because we loved the opportunity to share.
I promise you, we did not slip them $100 to say what they said on the stage. This has been